Hello, welcome to the Learn English Lab. Today's podcast, Advanced English Listening Practice topic name is How to Reduce Anxiety When Speaking English. That feeling, it's just so specific, isn't it? That nervous knot that just tightens in your throat, the heat that suddenly rushes to your face, and that absolute rock-solid certainty that your mind is about to go completely blank.
Right when you need it most.
Exactly. Right when you need a complex verb tense. If you've ever felt that paralyzing fear before speaking English, I mean, you are so far from being alone.
It's such a common experience.
So today we are doing a really critical deep dive into a very specific and I think a very manageable psychological barrier that affects millions of advanced English learners all over the world. We're talking about speaking anxiety.
And it is a crucial topic because when you actually look at the data, the biggest barrier to fluency for so many people, it isn't grammar.
No.
It's not their vocabulary size. It's this sudden, physio response that just completely hijacks their brain. Your level could be C1, you could be reading Shakespeare, but the second a real conversation starts, those physical symptoms kick in.
The racing heart, the sweaty palms.
This difficulty just finding a word you know, it makes you feel like you're right back at the beginning.
Yeah.
And we really want to underscore this, that anxiety is not a failure. It's not about your intelligence or your skill. It's a normal physical reaction, and we have real definitive strategies to manage it.
So what's our mission for this deep dive then? We're not just looking for quick tips, are we?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Our mission is to go way beyond the superficial stuff. We're going to apply some robust psychological research and proven linguistic habits directly to this challenge.
Okay.
This deep dive is all about equipping you with the mental and, just as importantly, the physical tools to completely transform your relationship with spoken English.
So we're not aiming for being fearless.
I don't think that's realistic. Fearlessness isn't the goal. The goal is resilience. It's knowing that when that anxiety shows up, and it probably will, you'll be prepared.
You'll have a toolkit.
You will be equipped, and you'll know exactly what to do to guide your body and your mind back to a place of calm, effective communication.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we can even get to the fixes, we have to understand what's going on under the hood. What is actually happening inside our brains when we panic about, making a grammar mistake in front of a native speaker?
Well, the whole key to understanding this anxiety is in how the brain processes one single thing.
Threat,
yeah. If you look at the research, the brain's architecture, it doesn't really draw a clear line between a social threat, like being judged in a conversation, and a physical threat, like, running from a tiger.
Yeah.
To the oldest part of our brain, they're both treated as a major risk to our survival.
So that feeling of vulnerability, of maybe saying the wrong thing, is basically pushing an ancient biological panic button.
That is the perfect way to describe it. We are talking about the amygdala, which is this tiny almond-shaped thing deep inside our brain.
A brain's alarm system?
The brain's alarm system, exactly. And when the situation, say, walking into a big meeting, triggers that alarm, the amygdala just floods the system. It activates the classic fight, flight, or freeze response.
And that's where all the physical stuff comes from? That's the chemistry taking over?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
When that alarm goes off, your body is instantly swamped with powerful stress hormones, mostly cortisol and adrenaline.
Okay.
Adrenaline gets you ready for action. That's the racing heart, the shallow breathing. But cortisol is the real problem for language learners.
Why is that?
Because it's a longer-acting hormone that actively gets in the way of higher-level thinking. Your body is basically prioritizing survival.
Right.
It's diverting energy away from anything it thinks is non-essential in that moment, like retrieving complex vocabulary or forming a perfect sentence.
And that explains the mental fog, that feeling where the word is in there somewhere, but your brain has just locked the filing cabinet because it thinks you need to run away.
That is it. The anxiety is actively interfering with your memory. That is the core finding. The brain is thinking, why should we worry about the past perfect tense when we might get kicked out of the tribe? It's a biological misfire.
And understanding that is so liberating, isn't it? Because it shifts the blame. It's not, I'm stupid. It's, my body is having a normal, if really inconvenient biological reaction.
That reframe is everything. It's the first step.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's get into the specifics. What are the situations that most reliably set off this alarm system for English learners? What are those common triggers?
Well, the scenarios are actually remarkably consistent. It doesn't matter what your background is or even your proficiency level.
And I'm guessing speaking with native speakers is like #1 on the list.
It absolutely is. The anxiety there comes from this really powerful and usually wrong assumption.
Which is?
The idea that the native speaker is this relentless, critical grammar checker who is just sitting there judging every little mistake.
Right, you automatically put them in the role of a judge.
You do. This perceived authority just creates this massive mental block.
And we see this disconnect all the time between what someone knows and how they perform under pressure. I'm thinking of that story of Maria, the Spanish teacher.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
She could teach complex English grammar, professionally, flawlessly. But when she went to London and just had to do something simple like order a sandwich.
In a real-world setting.
Yeah, that social anxiety of the real-world native speaker interaction just caused her to stutter and panic.
And Marie's story just highlights it perfectly. Anxiety bypasses knowledge. The fear of failure is just stronger than the technical skill.
And when you move that into a professional setting, that anxiety gets turned up to 11.
Because now the stakes are so much higher. It's not just social anymore. It's tied to your job, your career, your salary.
Right.
In a professional context, every single word you say feels like it has a huge consequence attached to it.
Like with Ahmed, the engineer from Egypt.
Exactly. Ahmed had, demonstrably superior technical knowledge in his field. But during these high-level client calls in English, he would just second-guess himself over and over again.
So he would simplify his language.
Unnecessarily. His fear wasn't about being misunderstood. It was this specific fear that a small language mistake might make his clients think his amazing technical expertise was somehow less.
Wow. So the language itself became a symbol of potential weakness, totally separate from the quality of his actual work.
You've got it. And then, of course, there's the acute pressure of group conversations. This is where fluency and speed really feel like they matter.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Group conversations are so anxiety-inducing because it's a multi-layered challenge for your brain.
Yeah.
You're not just trying to form your own sentence.
You're tracking multiple speakers, different accents.
You're trying to keep up with a conversation that's jumping all over the place, and you're looking for that tiny little window where you can jump in.
And the conversation moves so fast, by the time you've perfectly formulated your thought in English, the topic has completely changed.
That's it. And that leads to the freeze response.
Yeah.
You just stay silent, feeling like you failed, even though you had something really valuable to add.
And we absolutely have to talk about the modern stuff, phone calls and video meetings.
Oh, those are uniquely stressful because they strip away so many crucial parts of how we communicate.
The nonverbal cues.
The nonverbal cues. In a face-to-face chat, something like 60 to 80% of communication is body language, gestures, facial expressions.
We rely on that stuff to understand.
We rely on it heavily. And when that's gone on a phone call or the video connection is laggy, you lose that whole support system.
So it's all on your ears and your mouth.
It becomes all about sharp listening and a quick verbal response, and that just ratchets up the pressure to perform instantly.
Here's where it gets, I think, really interesting and maybe the most self-sabotaging part of it all, the internal pressure.
The perfectionism trap. The perfectionism trap is, I would argue, the most insidious root of speaking anxiety. It's this impossible standard you set for yourself.
The belief that every single sentence has to be flawless.
Dramatically perfect, perfectly pronounced, and that any tiny slip-up is a complete failure. And this often comes from, early classroom experiences that were all about error correction.
But the reality check here is that's just not how people talk, not even native speakers.
That is the essential truth that you have to internalize.
Wow.
If you really critically listen to native English speakers in real time,
even in formal settings.
Even in formal, unscripted settings, they're constantly using bad grammar, making incomplete sentences, mispronouncing words.
Using fillers.
So many fillers.
Yeah.
And yet, communication happens. The whole point of language is to connect and to transfer an idea, not to give a flawless linguistic performance.
So when a learner demands perfection from themselves, they're just setting themselves up for paralysis. They're creating this huge, terrifying gap between their expectation and the reality of just learning.
That's spot on. They are basically telling themselves, I am not allowed to sound like a language learner, which is fundamentally what they are.
Right.
And that psychological pressure puts such a massive load on your brain that the fear of the mistake becomes bigger than the desire to actually communicate. The first step is just accepting that your English is allowed to be good enough, even when it's far from perfect.
Okay, so since the anxiety really starts with those destructive thought patterns, the most powerful tools have to start with shifting your mindset.
Exactly. It's an inside job first.
And I think the most empowering shift is learning to reframe mistakes, to see them not as failures, but as valuable data.
That is a profound psychological switch. Instead of that moment of shame or embarrassment when you make a mistake, you have to immediately recategorize it as useful feedback.
I really love the analogy of a map. Mistakes are like lighting up a dark map. Imagine you're in a new territory and your knowledge is patchy. Every time you try to speak and you make an error or someone corrects you, you've just consciously identified a gap that you didn't know was there before.
That is the key takeaway. The learners who are too afraid to speak, who never venture into those dark areas, they never find out what they need to learn next.
Right.
By making a mistake, looking at it, and learning from it, you have actively made that knowledge gap smaller. You now know something you didn't know a moment ago. That's an accomplishment, not a failure.
We saw this strategy work so well with Kenji, the Japanese businessman who had this chronic speaking anxiety at work.
Kenji's approach was psychologically brilliant, just so simple.
He kept a mistake journal.
Yeah. After conversations, he wouldn't just sit there feeling embarrassed. He'd calmly jot down the errors he was corrected on or the words he couldn't find.
And that simple act of writing it down changed his whole perspective.
It did. It shifted him from this passive shame to active ownership. Each little entry in his journal wasn't a sign of his inadequacy anymore. It was a concrete, measurable piece of learning.
And he said it made the errors feel less scary.
Exactly. And over time, his brain just naturally started making fewer of those same mistakes.
You know, what's fascinating is how this ties into how learners think about their accent. That's another huge source of anxiety.
Oh, a massive one. For so many people, the accent is seen as this flaw that they have to just aggressively scrub away to sound like a true fluent speaker.
But an accent is part of your identity.
It's part of your linguistic identity. It reflects your journey, your background. And trying to get rid of every single trace of it is just a huge, unnecessary mental burden.
So we need to draw a really clear line here. The distinction between accent, which is just how you sound, and intelligibility,
Yes,
which is whether people can actually understand what you're saying.
that distinction is paramount. I mean, look at successful international figures in any field, politics, business, science. So many of them speak with distinct, strong accents, but their communication is totally effective.
Their accent didn't hold them back.
Not at all. It was the clarity of their message. So the actionable advice here is really simple. Focus on clarity,
Not elimination.
not elimination. If your accent has specific sound patterns that are genuinely getting in the way of people understanding you, like confusing L and R sounds or something, then yeah, focus on those.
Right.
But don't try to erase every trace of your first language. When clarity is the goal, the anxiety about sounding native just naturally shrinks because the goal is actually realistic.
And this brings us back to what might be the most liberating mantra in this whole process: adopting the good enough principle.
In language learning, good enough is often a huge practical success. If you got your idea across, if the main meaning was transferred,
Even with simple words or a grammar slip.
that is a successful communication event, period.
It's about focusing on the function, not the form. Like maybe you can't remember the word screwdriver, but you say the tool you use to turn screws.
And it works. The job is done. The successful communication is what matters. You have to adopt the mindset that done is better than perfect.
Because speaking something imperfectly is always better than saying nothing at all because you're paralyzed.
Always. You're waiting for these perfect words that may never come when you're under pressure.
Okay, now we have to talk about the most destructive part of anxiety, the part that lives entirely inside our own heads, that critical inner voice.
That negative self-talk.
Yeah.
It is just toxic for confidence and fluency.
Things like, I'm terrible at English, or they're definitely judging me.
Or, I should have known that word. Those statements actively ramp up your anxiety levels, which, as we said, chemically messes with your performance.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It really is, because your brain starts aggressively looking for evidence to prove that negative belief is true, and it completely misses all the positive interactions that are happening.
So we need some real, actionable strategies to replace that catastrophic inner voice.
It's about systematically replacing the critical self-talk with things that are realistic, encouraging, and just neutral.
So instead of, I will be judged.
You shift to something factual like, I am still learning. This is a process, not a final state. Instead of fearing judgment, you affirm, Most people are supportive, and they're focused on what I'm saying, not how I'm saying it.
Yuki, the Japanese student, she had a great way of doing this with pre-conversation affirmations.
Yuki used a classic cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, technique. Before any important English conversation, she would deliberately mentally repeat a phrase.
What was her phrase?
Something like, my English doesn't have to be perfect. My goal is clarity. I have valuable things to say that people need to hear.
And just repeating that helped.
It helped noticeably because she was mentally overriding that default negative script with a positive, realistic one before the pressure even started. It's about being proactive with your own psychology.
Right. So you've done the mindset work. But when that physical panic starts, you need something that works on the body right now.
When that amygdala alarm is ringing, we need tools that work on a physiological level to interrupt that stress hormone response. And thankfully, our breath is the most powerful and immediate tool we have.
Because anxiety makes you take those shallow, rapid breaths.
Which ironically tells your brain the danger is getting worse.
Yeah.
And that just speeds up the panic. So deliberate conscious breathing is the countermeasure. It's how you reset the system.
You're manually signaling safety to your body.
That's a great way to put it. You're activating the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the body's main relaxation response. And the 4-7-8 technique is super structured and really effective for this.
Okay, so break that down for us. Why those specific numbers? What's the mechanism?
The mechanism is tied to something called the vagus nerve. And the magic is really in that long, slow exhale, the 8 count. That long exhale sends a direct, powerful signal back up to the brain that the threat is over. So to do it, you breathe in quietly through your nose for 4 counts.
In for 4.
Hold that breath for 7 counts. And then you exhale completely and slowly through your mouth, making a little whooshing sound for 8 counts.
Oh, for 8.
Doing that cycle just 3 or 4 times right before you have to speak can seriously lower the peak of that initial anxiety spike. It just calms everything down.
And there's another one, right? One that's used in really high-stress environments, like by the military.
That would be box breathing.
Yeah.
And it is excellent for getting immediate mental focus when you're under pressure.
How does that one work?
You just visualize a square. You breathe in for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, breathe out for 4 counts, and then hold your lungs empty for 4 counts.
A 4x4 by 4x4 box.
Exactly. That rhythm, that focus pattern, it does 2 things. It slows your heart rate, but it also forces the rational part of your brain to focus on the counting, which pulls your attention away from the emotional panic center.
And if Navy SEALs use it to stay calm.
It's probably pretty effective at managing a physiological stress response.
So even just taking one single deep conscious breath right before you start talking can help?
It could disrupt that initial surge. Absolutely.
Okay, so that's breath. But what about the physical tension? Anxiety isn't just in your head, it's in your body.
That's spot on. Anxiety creates this immense physical tension, and it tends to gather in the places that are absolutely critical for speaking clearly.
Your shoulders, your neck.
Your throat, and especially your jaw. When those areas are tight, speaking is physically harder, your voice might tremble, and your clarity just plummets.
This is where progressive muscle relaxation, or PMR, comes in. And it's kind of counterintuitive. You use tension to get rid of tension.
Exactly. The technique is to systematically tense up a muscle group for about 5 seconds and then release it completely.
So you start at your toes and work your way up.
You move progressively up the body. Toes, calves, thighs, stomach, hands, arms. The goal is to feel that sharp contrast between the intense, deliberate tension and the sudden, total release. It helps you recognize and let go of the tension you're holding unconsciously.
And for English learners, there's a specific area that needs extra focus.
The jaw and the throat.
Yo.
So many learners clench their jaw tightly when they're nervous about pronunciation.
I do that.
And that clenching gets in the way of the flexibility you need for clear sounds. It makes your voice sound tight and strained.
So just consciously relaxing your jaw before a conversation.
Or even subtly relaxing in the middle of a sentence. It can instantly improve your clarity and just make speaking feel less like hard work.
Okay, but what if the anxiety hits you mid-conversation? Your mind starts spinning, you feel like you're not even in the room anymore. You need something for right now.
That's where grounding techniques come in. Grounding is a psychological method designed to pull your attention immediately out of that abstract, catastrophic thought loop, which is where anxiety lives, and anchor you back in physical reality.
It reminds your brain, I'm here, I'm safe.
Precisely. The 5-4-3-2-1 technique is a wonderful way to do that. It's like a rapid sensory inventory.
Okay, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What are those?
It engages all your senses. You identify 5 distinct things you can see around you.
Like the color of the wall, a book on the shelf.
4 things you can physically touch: the feel of your clothes, the temperature of the table. 3 things you can hear.
The clock ticking, traffic outside.
2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. That simple, immediate sensory task completely stops that flow of abstract, catastrophic thinking.
And for moments when you can't just pause the whole conversation, there are more subtle physical grounding methods.
Well, for sure. Simply press your feet firmly into the floor. Feel the solid ground beneath you. Or if you're sitting, really feel the chair supporting your weight.
Or just hold on to something.
Yeah, discreetly focus on the feel of a pen in your hand or the texture of a cup. These little physical sensations are immediate anchors that pull your attention back to the present.
You know, this brings up such an important question. Why do we feel this insane pressure to respond instantly in a conversation? Let's talk about the power of the pause.
The cultural pressure to have an immediate, seamless response is probably the biggest multiplier of anxiety in a conversation.
That's huge.
And the liberating truth is that pausing is not only acceptable, but in many, many cultures, it's seen as a sign of thoughtful, deliberate, high-quality communication.
So instead of rushing out a half-baked answer, we can actually use language to strategically buy ourselves some thinking time.
Absolutely. When you're asked a complex question, never feel like you have to launch into an answer right away. Take a visible, conscious breath first.
And you can even say something.
You can verbalize it. Use phrases like, "That is a brilliant question. Let me take a moment to formulate my thoughts on that." Or even just, that's an interesting perspective. That gives you several valuable seconds of processing time without any awkward silence.
And we have to remember how time feels different to the speaker. That silence that feels like an eternity when you're searching for a word.
To the listener, it's usually just 2 or 3 seconds.
That's such a crucial insight.
It really is. What feels like this endless, awkward void to you is just a momentary break for them. Pauses, when you use them on purpose, make you seem more thoughtful and measured, not less competent. Use them. They're a powerful tool.
Okay, so we've covered the in-the-moment physical stuff, but the best long-term strategy is about reducing the anxiety before it even starts, and that comes down to preparation.
Yes. Anxiety feeds on uncertainty. So strategic preparation is the single best way to reduce it. You anticipate the stressful situation and you plan for it.
You're proactively reducing the mental workload during the actual event.
Right. For those predictable high anxiety situations, a presentation, a job interview, that weekly client call, you should create what we call flexible mental scripts.
And these are not rigid word-for-word recitations.
No, absolutely not. They're framework outlines, they're safety nets.
So for something like a phone call, what would a framework look like?
You'd prepare some options for the common phases of the call. Effective greetings, a clear way to state your purpose, anticipating 3 or 4 questions they might ask you.
And having a few professional closings ready to go.
Exactly. Having those frameworks ready means your brain isn't trying to invent common social formulas from scratch while it's under stress. It frees up your mental energy to handle the unexpected parts of the conversation.
I'm thinking of Lynn, the software developer, who really struggled to contribute in her team's daily stand-up meetings.
Lynn's technique was so clever, so subtle, but so powerful.
Because just telling herself to speak more was too big and scary.
So instead, she would prepare 3 specific, detailed observations or well-formed questions related to the meeting topic before she even walked in the room.
Just 3.
Just 3. By preparing those, she guaranteed she always had a confident, high-quality way to contribute. It took away the anxiety of being put on the spot or feeling paralyzed trying to think of something smart to say.
It shifted her from being a reactive participant to a proactive contributor.
Totally.
Okay, another hugely valuable prep technique, though one that makes a lot of people cringe at first, is self-recording.
It can feel awkward, but it addresses the core difficulty of speaking in real time. When you're speaking spontaneously, you're trying to manage content, language, and self-criticism all at the same time.
It's too much.
It's way too much. Recording separates the performance from the analysis.
So the strategy is simple. You pick a topic, speak about it for a couple of minutes, record it on your phone, but the key is how you listen back.
This instruction is crucial. You have to listen back as a supportive friend, or like a professional coach.
Not a harsh critic.
Not a harsh critic.
Yeah.
You focus on what was clear, where your points were strong, and you pick only one small area for improvement, maybe a specific sound or sentence structure.
And what's amazing is that most people are surprised.
They're genuinely surprised that they sound so much better and calmer and clearer than they felt they did. And that directly dismantles that negative self-perception that anxiety creates.
Let's talk vocabulary confidence. That's another big one for preparation. Reducing that panic when you hit a word wall mid-sentence.
We have to get away from learning random abstract word lists. The focus needs to be on building a strong core vocabulary for the topics you actually talk about.
Your work, your hobbies, your daily life.
Exactly. And within those topics, the expert move is to prioritize learning collocations.
So words that naturally go together.
Yes, like target audience or market research or a strategic decision. When you learn those as a single chunk of information, instead of 3 separate words, your brain can grab them much faster.
Because under pressure, it's hard to assemble words. It's easier to grab a pre-made chunk.
Much easier. It's vital for improving your retrieval speed and cutting down on that moment of panic when you're searching for a word.
And it helps to keep a running list of useful expressions.
Oh, definitely. Keep it on your phone or in that mistake journal. If you struggle to summarize a point, write down, in summary, the key finding is, if you want to interrupt, write down, if I may just interject here.
So you're turning past frustrations into future confidence.
You're building a toolbox of practical, high-frequency phrases.
Finally, let's touch on visualization. This is a technique that top athletes use all the time.
Visualization is mental rehearsal. By vividly imagining a situation going well, you create strong, positive neural pathways in your brain.
So when the real event happens,
It feels less new and therefore way less threatening. Your brain has already successfully run the scenario multiple times.
so how do you do it? What's the instruction?
It has to be sensory and emotional. You close your eyes, you vividly imagine the scene, the room, the people, the lighting. Then you imagine yourself performing successfully,
Speaking clearly, your voice is steady.
handling a forgotten word smoothly. You pause, you use a different phrase, you continue without panic. And crucially, you vividly imagine that feeling of accomplishment and success at the end of the conversation.
Carlos, the Spanish lawyer, used this before he had to argue in court in English.
And he found that spending just 5 minutes every morning visualizing himself, presenting calmly, handling tough questions, it made the actual courtroom feel familiar.
So his mental prep gave him a cognitive advantage before he even started.
That's a perfect way to put it.
We've prepared. We have our mindset right. But even with all that, you can still feel anxiety in the moment. So you're there, you feel the panic rising. What can you do right then?
First thing, warm up. I'm talking about small talk.
Right.
Jumping straight into a complex, heavy topic is jarring for your brain. Small talk about the weather, the weekend, whatever. It's like stretching before you exercise.
Get your linguistic muscles moving.
It does. And it also serves a really critical psychological function.
Which is, it humanizes the other person.
It humanizes them. When you exchange a few pleasantries, the other person stops being this intimidating English-speaking authority and just becomes another human being. That subtle shift can really calm the anxiety response before the real conversation begins.
A huge reason for mid-conversation panic is split attention. We need to learn to focus outward, not inward.
That is the core of it. Anxiety is fueled by excessive self-monitoring. You're trying to build a sentence while also worrying about your grammar, your accent, and how you're being judged.
Your attention is scattered.
And that scattered attention is exactly what messes with your performance. So the strategy is a deliberate act of will. You have to redirect your entire focus onto the other person and the content.
So listen 100% to what they're saying.
What are they saying? What do they mean? What's their body language telling you? And you are genuinely focused on understanding and reacting to the ideas being exchanged. You have way less mental bandwidth left over for that paralyzing self-criticism.
That explains why it's often easier to talk about something you're really passionate about.
Yes, because your attention naturally shifts to the subject and you forget to be self-conscious.
Okay, what about when you need clarification? Which is totally normal. We need to do it without apologizing.
Apologizing for needing help. Saying, sorry, my English is bad, but it just reinforces the idea that needing help is a weakness. It just adds to the anxiety.
So instead, we should use neutral, confident choices.
Phrases that frame clarification as a necessary step for good communication.
Like, I want to make absolutely sure I understand correctly. Could you rephrase that last point?
Or, what exactly do you mean by that term? I'm not familiar with it. These are things native speakers say all the time in professional settings to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Right. It's a tool, not an admission of failure.
That's it.
And what about those verbal fillers? Well, we're often taught to scrub those from our speech.
And what's so fascinating here is the functional role that fillers play. They are not signs of bad English. They are natural, essential features of spoken language all over the world.
They're a signal.
They're a signal to the listener that you're still thinking, that it's still your turn to speak, and you just need a second to find the right word. They buy you invaluable processing time.
So the goal isn't to eliminate them completely, but to use them strategically.
Exactly. A moderate amount is totally normal, even for highly articulate native speakers. Phrases like, that's an interesting point, or, let me see. The way I would put it is, are intelligent fillers that keep the conversation moving while your brain works in the background.
Okay, another really powerful on-the-spot strategy, just being honest.
Sometimes the single most anxiety-reducing thing you can do is to just admit a limitation. Just say, I'm sorry, I don't know that specific word in English right now.
Or, I'm struggling to explain this complex idea precisely in English.
And that honesty cuts through the anxiety so effectively because it immediately removes the crushing pressure of pretending.
Right, you're not faking it anymore.
And if you're honest about searching for a word, in almost every social situation, your conversation partner will become your collaborator. They'll help you, they'll supply the word, they'll wait.
That's what happened with Priya, the researcher.
Yes. She used to fake understanding words she missed, and it caused her immense escalating anxiety. But once she started just confidently asking, sorry, I didn't catch that, what does that mean? She found people were always kind and helpful.
And her anxiety just plummeted.
Because she didn't have to maintain that exhausting facade of perfect understanding anymore.
And finally, just a quick reminder of those subtle physical grounding techniques you can use right in the middle of a conversation.
Remember that physical element. If you feel that tension rising, subtly press your feet down into the floor. That physical contact gives you a moment of tangible stability.
Or your posture.
If you're sitting, try to maintain an open, expansive posture, a power pose. There's some social psychology research that suggests that adopting these open, relaxed postures can actually reduce your stress hormones and increase feelings of confidence on a measurable level.
So these subtle physical actions can directly help calm the mental anxiety.
100%.
So we have the in-the-moment crisis management tools. But real, lasting confidence is built over time through consistency and controlled exposure.
This brings us to the exposure ladder approach. This is a direct application of a psychological principle called gradual exposure therapy.
Okay.
It means systematically confronting the speaking situations you fear, but in a controlled way. You start small and you gradually increase the difficulty. This prevents your nervous system from getting overwhelmed.
So you literally make a list of speaking situations from the least scary to the most scary, and that's your personal ladder.
Your personal ladder, exactly. It has to be personalized. But a typical one for a professional might look something like this.
Okay, what's level 1? The very first rung.
Level 1, speaking English to yourself in the mirror every day. Level 2, sending short voice messages to an online language exchange partner.
So still low stakes, no real-time pressure.
Right. Then level 3 might be ordering food or asking for directions in public. Level 4 could be making an actual phone call, which is very high anxiety for many.
And then up to group settings.
Level 5, speaking in a small social group with supportive friends. And then maybe level 6, giving a short presentation at work.
And the key here is not to rush up the ladder. You have to master each level.
Absolutely. You practice at one level until the anxiety for that specific scenario goes way down until it feels routine and manageable. Only then do you move up to the next higher stakes situation.
And this approach is so powerful because you're literally retraining your brain.
You are repeatedly proving to your amygdala with concrete evidence that you can handle these situations and survive. You're rewiring your fear response.
And really, the ultimate long-term antidote is just regular low-stakes practice.
You have to find environments where a mistake doesn't matter, where the consequence is basically zero.
Language exchange apps, conversation clubs.
Online forums, places where everyone is there to practice, so mistakes are expected and judgment is minimal.
And even private daily practice can make a huge difference, like Rahim, the Syrian refugee, and his mirror habit.
Raheem's habit was brilliant. He built his daily fluency completely in private by speaking English to his own reflection while he got ready in the morning.
He would just narrate his day.
He'd narrate his plans, argue a point from the news, describe objects in his room. That daily, private commitment built this incredible foundation of fluency and confidence before he ever had to have a high-stakes conversation with someone else.
The consistency is everything.
It is.
And we know that isolation just makes anxiety worse. You have to find your community.
And look specifically for groups where English is the medium for discussing something you love, not the focus of the study.
So a cooking group or a book club.
An online gaming community, a professional forum. When English is just the tool you're using to connect over a shared passion, the focus shifts away from scrutinizing the language and onto sharing ideas. And the anxiety just melts away.
And technology can be such a huge help here. There are so many tools to support this journey.
Incredible resources. For starters, language exchange apps like HelloTalk or Tandem. The fact that it's a reciprocal exchange you're teaching to, it just lowers the pressure.
And many of them let you start with voice messages.
Which is a fantastic low-pressure way to start. It gives you time to think and rehearse before you have to do a live call.
And now there are AI conversation partners.
Those are game changers. They provide truly judgment-free rehearsal. You can practice a job interview scenario 20 times in a row, and the AI will never get bored or frustrated.
It lets you build those neural pathways for specific situations until they feel completely normal.
Exactly.
And for those more specific fears about how you sound, there are pronunciation tools.
Yes. Apps that give you visual feedback, like showing you a sound wave or where your tongue should be. They take the fear of not sounding right out of this abstract, scary place and make it a concrete, actionable target.
If you know exactly what to fix, it feels manageable.
Much more manageable. And finally, a tool for your general baseline anxiety. Meditation apps.
Like Calm or Headspace.
Or even just free guided breathing sessions on YouTube. Regular meditation, even just 5 minutes a day, is scientifically proven to lower your overall anxiety levels.
And if your general anxiety is lower,
your specific speaking anxiety will automatically have a lower starting point.
And through all of this, we have to remember to celebrate our progress, not wait for perfection.
This requires a conscious effort. Keep a wins journal. Track the concrete successes, no matter how small.
I asked one question in the meeting today.
I had a 5-minute chat with a colleague about my weekend. I used a new collocation I learned. When you look back at that written evidence, you see undeniable progress.
And that evidence is what builds that deep, resilient confidence.
For sure. And remember to only compare yourself to your past self, never to some idealized version of someone else.
Okay, so before we wrap up, it is really important to acknowledge that for some people, even with all these strategies, the anxiety can remain severe.
It can. And it's critical to know when it moves beyond a normal learning challenge and into something that needs professional intervention.
So what are the criteria? When should someone seek professional help?
If your anxiety is so intense that you are systematically avoiding opportunities, like turning down a promotion or refusing to go to meetings or avoiding all social events in English.
If it's holding you back in your life.
Yes. Or if it's causing full-blown panic attacks or just having a chronic, severe impact on your quality of life. At that point, professional help is really the best path forward.
And what are the options for that?
The gold standard is cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, with a therapist who can help you restructure those deep-seated thought patterns. There are also many language coaches who now specialize in anxiety management.
And for specific speech issues.
If the fear is really tied to something like a persistent stutter or pronunciation issue, a speech pathologist can offer targeted physical support.
So we've covered the psychology, the physical tools, the long-term habits. What's the core truth we should all take away from this deep dive?
The core truth is that reducing speaking anxiety is really about changing your relationship with fear. It's not about eliminating it completely.
It's about having the tools to manage the discomfort.
And knowing that the discomfort of learning, of being vulnerable, that's temporary.
And you have to keep your eyes on the prize, on the meaningful goals of learning English, connection, career, self-expression.
Those goals are so valuable, and they are definitely worth the temporary discomfort of growth.
Every conversation you have, every mistake you learn from, it builds your competence.
It expands your comfort zone. You do not need perfect English to communicate effectively. You just need the courage to show up and speak.
This journey isn't a straight line. There will be good days and bad days. But with the mindset shifts and the practical tools we've talked about today, you have everything you need to succeed.
And here's a final thought to leave you with. Remember that every single confident English speaker you admire, every successful international CEO, every articulate presenter, they once struggled with these exact same fears.
They all started somewhere.
They pushed through that discomfort, and you have exactly the same capacity and now all the tools to do the same thing. Give yourself permission to be imperfect, because that voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough, that's anxiety talking. It's not the truth. Your authentic, imperfect voice is exactly who the world needs to hear from.
Your voice matters. Your English matters. And you are ready to share both with confidence. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into reducing English-speaking anxiety.
We'd encourage you to take just one technique from today. Maybe it's the 4-7-8 breathing, or maybe it's just adopting that good enough principle and really apply it this week. Small, consistent actions lead to huge, life-changing results.
We hope this deep dive was helpful. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to this YouTube channel.